Truth Unveiled here, and today we're going to be talking about human-animal hybrids and the bigger agenda behind all this and what they do not want you to know. And later on, we're also going to be talking about what your government has just done and how the National Institute of Health is literally approving this in America, that and more to come. But right now, I'm at the Real Strategy, and it says, crossbreeding humans with animals approved in the United States. Scientists given the go-ahead to mix human and animal DNA. And we also know that this is nothing new whatsoever, because we know that they've been also doing this for many years, and many scientists behind closed doors have been doing these things, but now it's finally reaching the public. And like I said, I'm going to tell you the bigger agenda in just a second. The report goes on to say that the federal government announced plans Thursday to lift the moratorium on the funding of controversial experiments that use human stem cells to create animal embryos that are partly human. The National Institute of Health, or the NIH, another alphabet soup, is proposing a new policy to permit scientists to get federal money to make embryos known as chimeras under certain carefully monitored conditions, and we're going to go to their report in a minute. The NIH imposed a moratorium on funding these experiments back in September 2015 because they could raise ethical concerns. One issue is that scientists might inadvertently create animals that have partly human brains, endowing them with some semblance to human consciousness or human thinking abilities. Another is that they could develop into animals with human sperm and eggs and breed, producing human embryos or fetuses inside animals or even hybrid creatures. But of course, many scientists have argued that they could take steps to prevent those outcomes, and that embryos provide invaluable tools for medical research. And we also know too that there are many scientists who are very concerned about this. And there are many in the scientific and the medical community who are questioning this and raising ethical concerns about this, because there are many concerns about this indeed, and we're going to go over some of them in just a second. But there are many scientists who are trying to tell us that, oh, well, these hybrids could lead to new ways to prevent and treat illnesses, and they say that they're hoping to produce sheep, pigs, and cows with human hearts, kidneys, livers, pancreases, and possibly other organs that could be used for transplants. But what if I told you that it's actual herbs and remedies and natural remedies that actually help fight diseases? And many in the medical field know this, but what does Big Pharma have to do? They have to keep making money off of you, and the only way they can do that is to keep you sick and fund these things such as what you're seeing today. Gizmodo also talks more about this, and it says U.S. government may lift ban on the funding of chimeras. But like I said earlier, what if I told you that your U.S. government has been funding these chimeras behind closed doors? And what if I told you that they're getting help from others as well? And we're going to talk more about this in a second to come, so you can see exactly what they're really doing and just why they're funding these chimeras to begin with, because trust me, it's not what you think. Now, Gizmodo reports that in the 2009 guidelines dealing with human stem cell research, the NIH originally banned the introduction of these human cells into animal ones, but in 2015 the organization said that it wouldn't be funding new chimeric research until any new guidelines were taken under review. But now the agency said in a release, and we're going to go to that release in a second, that due to scientific advancements, they're now willing to make some changes and fund some of this research with a few conditions. At least that's what they're telling us, but let's keep going. It says, under the proposed guidelines, there will be a new restriction that would disallow the introduction of human cells in earlier stage primate embryos. There's also a ban that excludes the breeding of animals where human cells may have a large impact. So basically, the NIH wants to prevent any circumstances where a human-like embryo would develop. Rodents are exempt from this review because there's no way one would become human-like. At least this is what they're telling us. And later on in this video, we're going to go over what the NIH actually said. Before we get to what the NIH said, I wanted to take you to what MIT had to say in their technology review article dated from a few days ago. And as you see, it says NIH plans to lift funding ban on non-human animal hybrids. The U.S. could ease a moratorium on fusing human and animal embryos while restricting human-monkey combinations. And then it says, should the U.S. government use tax dollars to fund scientists fusing human stem cells into early animal embryos in order to create chimeras that are part human and part pig or part mouse? The U.S. National Institute of Health, or the NIH, says the answer is yes, because the agency announced that it plans to lift the moratorium that since last year blocked taxpayers' money from flowing to this type of hot button research. This isn't the first time that this has been going on, because the MIT Technology Review also reported back of January earlier this year that such experiments were already underway in the United States with several dozen sheep and other animals that carried fetuses that potentially contained a mix of human cells. So this has been going on for a long time, and even scientists were carrying out this work at the Salk Institute and at Stanford University, and they say that fetal animals would only contain at the most a small proportion of human cells. But why would they contain any human cells at all? Now, many scientists and biologists, including ones at MIT, have even said that chimeras have not worked, but that it's a very important experiment. But those at the NIH have noted in statements that biomedical researchers, quote, have created and used animal models containing human cells for decades now in order to gain insights into biology and disease. At least that's what they're telling you. But it's interesting because they say that the new research is different because potent human stem cells are being injected directly into a very early stage animal embryo, which consists of just a couple dozen cells. So theoretically, the human cells could then end up contributing to any part of the animal at any given moment in time. And then it goes on to say that there's definitely interest in the scientific community to pursue these studies, a researcher at Stanford University has said. The NIH is doing the right thing and thoroughly evaluating the scientific and bioethical implications of this work before pushing forward. However, what is the real point of these experiments? Why even conduct these experiments to begin with? What is the real purpose behind them? And what they try to tell you is that, oh, it's leading to new technologies, and oh, that's why we're doing it, because it's advancing technologies and it's helping with stem cell research and it's for research-backed purposes. But is it really? Because you should never believe a word that your federal government is telling you, because they get paid to lie to your face, and you're going to see what I'm talking about. Now, this is the actual report from the NIH, and it says, next steps on research using animal embryos containing human cells. And it says, biomedical researchers have created and used animal models containing human cells for decades to gain valuable insights into human biology and disease development. And they want you to think that, oh, it's to help with disease. But what if I told you that they've already found cures for much, if not all, of the diseases out there, and they found it with natural resources and natural remedies with seeds as well, which is why they had to ban them in order to make foods go seedless, because they want to keep you sicker. But let's keep going. It goes on to say, for example, human tumor cells are routinely grown in mice to study cancer disease processes and to evaluate potential treatment strategies. To advance regenerative medicine, it is common practice to validate the potency of pluripotent human cells, which can become any tissue in the body, through introducing them into rodents. With recent advances in stem cell and gene editing technologies, an increasing number of researchers are interested in growing human tissues and organs in animals by introducing pluripotent human cells into early animal embryos. And then they go on to tell us that formation of these types of human-animal organism, referred to as chimeras, and that's what we're talking about, holds tremendous potential for disease modeling, drug testing, and perhaps eventual organ transplant. However, uncertainty about the effects of human cells on off-target organs and tissues in the chimeric animals, particularly in the nervous system, raises ethical and animal welfare concerns. As well it should, because this is very concerning indeed. Now it goes on to talk about their Federal Register and how the NIH has published their and their grants and contracts proposals to make 2 changes to their policy. We're going to go over that as well. And some of what they want to change is what? 1, human pluripotent cells are introduced into non-human vertebrate embryos up through the end of gastrulation stage, with the exception of non-human primates, which would only be considered after the blastocyst stage stage, or 2, human cells are introduced into post-gastrulation non-human mammals, excluding rodents, where there could be either a substantial contribution or a substantial functional modification to the animal brain by the human cells. The NIH is seeking public comments on these proposals, and they say that their comments are open for a month. We know this is not the first time that there's been much fascination about chimerism and chimeras and human-animal hybrids in the medical and the scientific community as well, because even from a report from the American Journal of Medical Genetics that was published back in 1996, that report even goes on to talk about how there could be animal-human hybrids that is found in the blood of many people and we don't even know it. But I'm here at the Federal Register, which is the daily journal of the U.S. government, and it says, request for public comment on the proposed changes to the NIH guidelines for human stem cell research and the proposed scope of an NIH steering committee's consideration of certain human-animal chimera research. Now, the Register itself goes on to say how they're looking to approve comments and receive comments on or before September 6, 2016. But I'm here at the supplementary information just to give you some more background on this and why this is so important indeed. But of course, they like to tell us that since these guidelines were issued in 2009 about human stem cell research and if they could use chimeras or not, growing knowledge and advancement of stem cell biology has created new research opportunities. Some scientists are exploring strategies for growing human tissue and organs in animals through the introduction of human pluripotent cells into early stage embryos of non-human vertebrate animals. These experimental designs raise questions regarding where the human cells might go in the developing animal and how they might function, such as whether the human cells might contribute to the central nervous system and affect the cognition of the animal or not. And this is what they released, the funding moratorium on, quote, NIH research involving introduction of human pluripotent cells into non-human vertebrate animal pre-gastrulation embryos, unquote. The NIH subsequently held workshops with experts on these issues back in November of 2015 to review the state of the science and discuss animal welfare issues. And in fact, the workshop illustrated while there may be significant challenges to creating chimeric models, there is clear interest and potential in developing or producing animal models with human tissues or organs for studying human development, disease pathology, and eventually organ transplantation. Now, the report ends when it talks about the research and how they're conducting research for funding these chimeric cells in animal-human hybrids. And as you can see, there are many guidelines that the NIH sets in place when it comes to research that is eligible for NIH funding and research that is not eligible for NIH funding when it comes to chimerism. Now, it's just very interesting and suspicious indeed how they're pushing this and how they're letting us know and finally revealing to us in the mainstream public about these chimerism and about these human-animal hybrids. But of course, they're giving us some truth and they're telling us half-truth because there's something else that they're not really telling us. And what they're not telling us is that your government is already conducting these experiments behind closed doors without the public's approval or the public's knowledge. They've been doing these things and conducting these tests and conducting these human-animal hybrids for a very long time now, for probably well over 50 years. And that's not all that they're doing, because the real reason is to push the evolution agenda onto the public and to make us believe that we really came from monkeys when this is simply not the case. The picture that you're currently looking at right now is one showing you of a deep underground military base, as well as all of the secret underground cities that are currently underground beneath your feet right now. Because whether or not you knew this, but what? Your government has been conducting experimentation behind closed doors underground using our tax dollars in order to do so. There are secret underground bases, or what's commonly known as DUMBs, which are deep underground military bases. That's where they're conducting these hidden underground experimentations, where they're testing and making hybrids just as they've done during the times of Noah. And the reason that they're doing this is because they're creating creatures that are rats with wings and creatures such as snakes that fly so that they can be used later on when the time is necessary. And like I said, this isn't the first time that they're doing this. They've been doing this for a very long time, but now they're finally starting to tell the public and finally starting to release this information to the public. Anytime your government tells you that, oh, we're just doing something, oh, it's brand new, no, it is not. Because it's only a matter of time until they finally start to release these disgusting creatures out to the public. But the good news is you'll know exactly where they really come from and how they were really made. Because yes, this information is classified by the CIA and the government until now.